My name is Brian Ignaut. I'm the founder of Degrees of Freedom, and we're here in my woodshop in Venice, California. I've always loved designing things. It's something that brings me great joy. I can get so fixated on something and work on something for days and hours, and I don't even notice that time passes. It's been like that since I was a kid. And even going into college, I couldn't decide between engineering and architecture because I honestly wasn't very good at math. But also just doing straight art to me wasn't technical enough. But both my parents were graphic designers, so I was raised in a artistically or creatively inclined household. So my background is in mechanical engineering. I went to University of Michigan and spent my career working on solar technology. In school, I designed solar cars, started my career, I designed solar power plants, and then most recently I spent 6 years designing deployable solar arrays for spacecraft. In space, you're trying to scoop up as much sunlight as you can, but you need to stow that in a rocket when going up into space. So it was learning about how to apply my solar background to this volume-constrained space application that introduced me to the whole field of mechanism design and folding, which is ultimately how I arrived at this passion for origami engineering and folding. I always thought of folding paper as being like making like a paper crane or something like that. And what I didn't realize is that these combinations of creases and vertexes they're actually mechanisms. And they obey the exact same engineering laws as networks of linkages with bolts and bearings and rod ends and stuff like that. Like the art of origami then created an entire field of origami engineering dedicated to the technical aspects of folding. You can learn a lot about folding from past aerospace engineers, from the Apollo era, from the shuttle era, International Space Station, but also bugs have been folding their wings for over 300 million years. There are people whose careers are dedicated to just solving the math behind folding to understand how proteins fold, and architects that are figuring out how to use origami to make buildings or protective shelters. Learning about all these different fields helps you understand what's physically possible in design. And when designing a new technology, it helps put context around your performance and your technical decisions. And going through that process made me learn about origami engineering, that there was even a thing. So I wanted to find a way to take these things that I was learning for these massive programs and try to make products that people can interact with on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of opened up a new creative field, like a new creative palette for me as an engineer. What I enjoy most about Degrees of Freedom is being able to work as an engineer in a highly technical fashion, but to connect more directly with people. In my previous experience, most of my work was hidden behind other subsystems and programs, and the chance for anyone to actually interact with and touch the stuff that I was doing, it was so many steps removed. When you work on spacecraft, it inspires and contacts a lot of people, but in a very abstract way. And with Degrees of Freedom, I can make these really compelling mechanisms, but interact directly with a person in a really intimate fashion and actually like bring real tangible joy to their life when they use what I'm working on. That's what I really love about this type of work, is it's very like intimate form of engineering. I've always had really involved projects at home, and not being able to share a satellite with my friends and family, I wanted to find another way to bring it into my daily life. And like a great way to do that was just to share this passion of mine with my friends and family through presents. The loop table, which is the first product for Degrees of Freedom, was designed as a side table for my parents for the holidays one year. I designed a desk lamp for my friends that are really into light. I designed an engagement ring box for my fiance, and that's honestly how Degrees of Freedom started. So in engineering, Degrees of Freedom describe how a mechanism moves. So a single degree of freedom mechanism can move in one way, meaning if you bind one joint, the entire thing is locked. So you can think of a rope has a bazillion degrees of freedom. It can move in all different types of ways. A single degree freedom mechanism is specifically really satisfying because it moves in a very deterministic fashion. So actually, Degrees of Freedom honestly makes a lot of single degree freedom mechanisms. So Degrees of Freedom has three main values: enjoyment, inspiration, and advancement. Most importantly, Degrees of Freedom wants to bring enjoyment to its users. So every time you touch or interact with a Degrees of Freedom product, it should bring you just enjoyment and pleasure. And hopefully that's just like a lasting experience that the person can continue to enjoy every time they use the Degrees of Freedom product. The second value is inspiration. So, I was inspired by the research and fields that I learned about while working on aerospace structures, and this inspired me to do all this awesome stuff with the Degrees of Freedom. And I would love for other people to have the same experience. One of the things I'm hoping to accomplish with Degrees of Freedom is to inspire others to create their own things. It's so much fun to be able to iterate and design products with paper and cardboard. And it's amazing how far you can get and how quickly with stuff that you just have sitting around. And if I can inspire other people to design cool stuff like this, it's like, paying it forward, because I feel like I was really fortunate to come across this myself. The third value for Degrees of Freedom is advancement. So this last year, we published a paper on the DOF joint. So it's the designed offset joint. It's a backronym for Degrees of Freedom, but it's a way to turn 2D cuts and creases into 3D motion. So the point for that was to try to find a cheaper way to make folding furniture. I want to continue to contribute to the field that got me here. So I want to generate new research, new folding methods, and continue to advance the state of the art that can inspire more art.